All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 6:30. I've been asked to call the meeting to order tonight. This is the first Planning Commission meeting of 2025 for February 5th. And if we could have a pledge of allegiance. Commissioner Miller, could we ask you to lead the pledge?
Absolutely. Stand? Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And turn it over to you, Ben.
Yep, Maria here will provide a roll call of all the planning commissioners. One thing I do want to note, just as kind of a point of order, before you guys speak, we do have a button on the side of the dais for the microphone, so please make sure you click that before you guys speak on a microphone. That way it can be picked up for the audio for both the benefit of the members of the audience as well as for the recordation. All the Planning Commission meetings are recorded and posted on the city's YouTube page, and so it's able to make sure that the audio is recorded as part of the record. And so Maria's going to say everyone's name and just state here that you are present.
Commissioner Chester.
Here.
Commissioner Hicks.
Here.
Commissioner McHouston. Here. Commissioner Mild.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Mullins.
Here.
And Commissioner O'Brien.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. We're off to a good start. We do have our city clerk here who's going to administer the oath of office to all of our newly appointed members and officially swear you guys in, and then we will get the meeting started. So very excited.
Can I have you all join me in the well, please? Sure. Hi. Congratulations to all of you. Okay, if you can raise your right hand and please repeat after me. I, please state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I can have you guys sign your oath of office, please. Congratulations. 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 And if I can have you all sign certificates, please. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. All right, we're good. Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Okay, so now that everyone's seated, we'll move to the next part of the agenda. So we do need The election of officers, as part of the meeting and keeping the order, we have a chair of the Planning Commission as well as a vice chair that assists the chair in the execution of the Planning Commission and maintaining order through the agenda. As part of the nominations, we will start with the chair and then follow once that nomination period has ended and the chair has been voted upon. The vice chair, the way that the process will work is we will take nominations for the chair. You can either nominate someone else or nominate yourself. Nominate someone else or yourself. And then as in the order that we receive, then we will take a vote, and the majority that receives the vote, once that majority has been received, then that person will become the chair, and then we'll repeat the process for the vice chair. And so with that, does anyone have any nominations for the chair of the Planning Commission?
I'd like to make a nomination of Stacy Chester for chair. Stacy's been on the commission for the last 2 years. Always the most prepared and has done a really good job in the past. So I'll make that nomination.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a nomination for Dennis Miller. Dennis has extreme background in this and knows how to handle these meetings well when needed.
Okay. If there is no more nominations, and we will start in the order in which we receive. So we will start with a vote for Stacy Chester, and we'll do a roll call just so we can make sure that we can count how many votes. And so I'll have Maria do the roll call for the nomination first for Stacy Chester.
Commissioner O'Brien.
Are we voting yea or nay?
Yes.
Nay.
Commissioner Mullins.
Yes.
Yay.
Commissioner Miller.
Nay.
Commissioner Mild.
Nay.
Commissioner McCuston.
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks.
Yes.
Commissioner Chester.
Yes.
That's 4-3. 4 in favor, yes.
Okay, so that is 4 in favor. So we now have a new Planning Commission chair. Congratulations,
Thank you.
Commission Chair
Thank you.
Chester. And now we will start then the same process for the vice chair. And so if we have any nominations for the vice chair, we will start that now. So if anyone has any nominations, we will begin that process now.
I'd like to nominate Dennis Miller.
Okay, seeing no other nominations, we'll do a roll call for Dennis Miller for vice chair.
This way. Commissioner O'Brien.
Yay.
Commissioner Mullins.
Yay.
Commissioner Miller.
Yay.
Commissioner Mild.
Yay.
Commissioner McCuston.
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks.
Yes.
And Commissioner Chester.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas and 0 noes.
All right, well, congratulations to both Commissioner Chair Chester and Vice Chair Miller. So we'll give you guys kind of a minute to reorganize. So Commissioner Chester will be in the middle. Dennis Miller, you don't actually have to move, so you're in the right spot. And then because we kind of set everyone up based on alphabetical order, if you have any preferred seats that you would like to be at, don't feel compelled to stay where you are. But if you also are happy with where you're at, you don't have to move either. So unless you happen to be Brandon in the middle. So.
So now we go to the staff introductions.
Yes, that is correct. So now that we have a majority of new members to the Planning Commission, we wanted to take a moment just to introduce all the staff members that will be working with you guys as part of the bringing the projects to the Planning Commission. So I wanted to start and introduce the community development side of the team, and then I will have Fermin Preciado introduce kind of the development services side or the engineering side of the land development team. So I'll start. I know I've met with all of you guys. I'm Ben Matlock. I oversee the community development department for the city of Yucaipa, and I'm the city planner. As part of my team, part of the backbone of the department is Maria Koolhoven. She's our administrative assistant, and so she'll be the one that's coordinating with you guys, and certainly responding to, if you guys need coordination with anything, need to reach out for a meeting. She's definitely a great resource for that. And then as part of the support for our meetings, we do have legal counsel present. And so next to me right here is Michael Ryder. He's with our law firm, Cole Huber. And so he's able to help answer any legal questions that come up or at least provide advice on the land use decisions. Certainly if there's an issue that comes up ahead of the meeting and, whether or not it's a conflict of interest or a question of that, he's able to help provide advice, or if there's just a general question on a land use matter, he can help provide the direction as well. And so he's a great resource. And then I also do want to introduce the rest of the planning team. So right next to me is Christian Farmer, one of our associate planners. Behind him is Maddie Jordan, who is one of our other associate planners. So they both make up a lot of the projects you guys will see. And then as part of our support, we also do have Katie Syme right back there. And so she also is a big integral component. She's at the front counter. So if you come in to see or ask questions at the planning counter, they are always there to help out. And so they will be doing the bulk of the presentations you see, and I'll be doing probably the more complex ones, but we're happy to serve you guys and the rest of the city in all these projects. And I will have Fermin Preciado come up and introduce the rest of the land development team, especially on the engineering side.
Thank you, Ben, and good evening, commissioners, and congratulations. My name is Fermin Preciado. I'm the Director of Development Services and also the city engineer for the city of Yucaipa. And I'd like to introduce Katrina Kunkel. She is an associate engineer in the engineering division, and Landon Kern is the assistant city engineer. And I just wanted to share that as many of the projects that you will be reviewing throughout the year, the engineering division, along with other divisions in development services and community development, will be reviewing the projects early on. You will see in this chair next to Christian, somebody from the engineering staff, primarily Katrina Kunkel, and her role and our role here would be to answer any questions that you might have regarding the engineering and public works side of the projects, which is usually drainage related, traffic related, or even if it relates to the FEMA floodplain within the city. So again, you will be seeing one of us, primarily Katrina, in that chair, and to answer any questions that you might have, and looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
And then as part of the last introduction, our city manager, Chris Mann, did prepare a video. He is unfortunately at a conference today, so he wasn't able to be in person, so that's why he recorded video, but he really wanted to be here. And just also sent his appreciation for you guys serving and volunteering to support the city in reviewing these projects and volunteering your service for the community. And so with that, I will start.
Good evening. I really wanted to be with you in person tonight as you embark on this journey, your first meeting here of this new planning commission. Unfortunately, I had a scheduling conflict. The League of California Cities puts on an annual conference for city managers, and that conference is going on now through Friday, so I couldn't be here in person tonight, but I did want to send a message primarily just to welcome you to the planning commission and to welcome back those who are returning, and to wish you the best of luck, and to let you know that you have the support of the city council, of myself, and all the city staff to help you along this journey for the next couple of years. I did want to bring up some important things. We are looking for a little bit of a change of direction from where we've been the past couple of years with our commissions and committees, and particularly the Planning Commission. Of all of our committees and commissions, the Planning Commission is arguably the most important. You deal with projects, in many cases you are able to make an actual decision as opposed to only serving in an advisory capacity, and the decisions you make have the ability to shape the future of our entire community. So it's very important to the City Council that we raise our level of professionalism across the board, across the entire organization, but definitely as it pertains to our commissions and committees as well. We really want to take a business-friendly approach. Now, that doesn't mean that applicants are always going to get the answer that they're looking for, but it is important that the process is fair, that applicants feel that they're treated fairly, that the process was handled in a timely manner, that the decision makers are well informed on their project and thoughtful in the decision-making process, and that decisions are made based on facts, not just on personal preferences. One of the things that really did not happen as much as it should have the past couple of years that we need to change is that whether you approve or deny a project, it is very important that you adopt findings. Findings are the because, right? We deny this project because of these following reasons. And findings need to be supported by evidence in the record. In the example of a denial, if you deny a project, very often the applicant will appeal that denial to the City Council. Well, without findings, the Planning Commission recommendation is not really all that helpful to the City Council. So the City Council is going to have those findings to look at the reasons why the application was denied by the Planning Commission. You're going to be working on some complicated issues, sometimes difficult decisions, sometimes contentious. We're going to have some big things coming up in the next couple of years. One of the most important is the update of our development code. So this is a really critical time in the city, and I'm really glad that you individuals are on the Planning Commission now. I think we've got the right mix of people to handle complicated issues like that. One thing that I did want to point out is that while as a Planning Commissioner you do serve the community, you represent the City Council. And that's an important distinction, right? Planning Commissioners do not serve to represent the sentiments of the community, right? For a Planning Commission, it really is a very critical but very narrow scope. When you're evaluating a project, you really should be looking at, is it consistent with existing policy? Is it consistent with the direction of the City Council? Is it consistent with the general plan? Is it consistent with the development code? Does it follow sound planning principles? Things that a Planning Commission really should not be considering are, do I personally like the project? Do I like this land use? Do I like or trust the applicant? What does the community feel about this project? Community sentiment really isn't something that the Planning Commission should be taking into consideration. You know, sometimes members of commissions and committees have political aspirations beyond that committee or commission. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But what impact might this decision have on my political future? That's something that really should not be taken into consideration. Things like personal preferences, community sentiment, these things are the purview of the City Council. And the Planning Commission really is not a second City Council. Again, the scope is much more narrow and serves a very specific and important purpose. As you embark on this journey, there will be training opportunities in the near future. I hope you'll take advantage of them. They are very good. And whether dealing with a prominent developer or an ordinary resident, the Planning Commission really needs to be a professional and positive face of the city. For many people coming to the Planning Commission, you will be the face of the city, and it's important that we instill confidence and trust in the city's land use processes. So I want to really thank you again for stepping up and being willing to serve. I know that this can be a challenging and sometimes thankless job, but I hope that it will be intellectually stimulating for you and that you'll find it fulfilling. So from the City Council and myself, thank you and good luck.
Okay then. And with that, we can move on to the next stage of the meeting, which is public comment.
All right, do we have any public comment?
Yes, I received two speaker slips. First comment is from Martha Glupka.
Martha Glubka?
I answered it anything, though. Whoops, I need my glasses, guys. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Martha Glubka, and tonight I'd just like to congratulate each of you in your new roles for the City of Yucaipa. And I know two of you, I know Tony Hicks and Brandon Milhood. I've heard of Stacy, and Dennis Miller, and I've heard nothing but good things, and I hope to get to know the rest of you as well. I believe the Planning Commission is one of the most important roles in the city. As Chris Mann just noted, I hope over time that you will get to know your constituents and keep in mind that they all have the same concerns that I'm hopeful you will have as well. Let's keep the lines of communication open, and again, congratulations. We're happy to welcome each of you. I'm going to ad-lib a little bit. I listened to Chris's thing, and he kind of made note that it's not important to listen to the people of Yucaipa. I disagree with that. I think that, yes, you work for the city, but you also work for the people of Yucaipa. And I've seen where the council last year, or you all, voted things in and suggested to the city that they go a certain way, and they went the opposite way. And I think that's a shame. I hope some of you will be strong enough to really step up to them if you believe in something and let them know how you feel. So that's about it. Happy to have everybody here, and congratulations again.
All right, and the next speaker is Dr. Hanson Wong.
Good evening. My name is Hanson Wong, and I live in Yucaipa. Thank you very much for volunteering for this commission, and the two of you that have been on it for a while will guide the rest into continuing the work that you do. We appreciate that. You are the guardians of what people come to the city for, both in business and in residence. And we have a good plan. If we follow the general plan and give all of the different bonus densities that they deserve, get the different type of commercial that we need for the city for revenue, I think the city will grow, and that the residents will appreciate it and our businesses will appreciate it. So thank you again very much for it, and have a good evening.
Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. The first item of business is the approval of Planning Commission minutes of August 21st, 2024.
And if the Plan Commission wants, you can either approve the consent agenda as all three items, so the minutes of November 6th, the Stater Brothers remodel project, and the oak tree permit, or you can take them individually as separate actions, or you can pull any of them if you wish as well. So it is up to the chair of how you want to proceed, or if any of the commissioners identifies one item that they would like to pull.
Does anybody want to pull an item?
No.
Move forward.
I got a question on page 3 under discussion. Commissioner Higginson is not on our commission anymore, but in the minutes it suggested staff work with the applicant to redirect some of the landscaping to the front area to enhance the visual aesthetics, and that the applicant, Kenny Gibson, agreed with the landscaping enhancement. So I'm assuming all that's happening.
Yes, that is correct. That was included in their conditions of approval for that project.
Very good. Thanks.
That I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as a whole.
I'll second it.
Okay. So you can do the all in favor and
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
okay.
Passes. All right, we're going to move on to number 2, which
Oh.
is, oh, sorry.
You'll move on to 4 now.
Oh, sorry, here we go. Oh, we're just moving into study session?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so I get to dust off my Professor Ben for a little bit. So really this is, I'm gonna do a few different study sessions over the next couple meetings, just because since we have quite a few new planning commissioners, wanna make sure to catch you guys up to speed. For reference, I went to school for 4 years on, learning about planning and all the different facets. You guys did a crash course in one meeting, so gonna try to catch you guys up at least for the bare bones, so you guys can be effective at your guys' role. And so really just trying to give you guys enough of a comfort level to start. So this one really is more germane to the review process and kind of where your guys' role fits in and kind of what the meeting looks like, and really to help you with the next item, which will be your first public hearing project you guys have. So really, in terms of the reviews you guys get, you have two types of projects you typically see. One is a legislative, which is our policy documents, the general plan, our zoning code, and other stuff. This is the framework of what projects are reviewed under. And this is something where the PC, the Plan Commission's role, is really just to recommend the policy to the city council, where the city council actually is one that adopts it. And the other one is what's referred to as quasi-judicial. So you guys essentially work as a judge. You're reviewing an actual entitlement project for its compatibility or consistency with existing policy and making the required findings. And so you guys are the final action of that project. You guys make the final decision unless it is appealed to the city council. But normally you guys are the final vote, and what you guys say goes until they start building it. And so your role is, at a high level, the way that the process works is we'll provide you guys a staff report and our recommendations. You guys will listen at the meeting to the goals and ideas from the applicant. You'll hear the public testimony. You'll participate with the rest of the commission in focusing on the bid picture. You'll ensure that the conditions kind of meet what the project actually needs for it to work, and then you'll make an informed decision on that and document that thought process. And so that's where the findings come into everything related to that decision. And the typical format for these public hearings is you'll start off with the chair going, we are opening the public hearing at this time. You guys will identify as parte communications any information that you learned about the project that maybe the other commissioners didn't know and wasn't in the staff report. You'll hear staff do a presentation about the project. You'll get to ask us questions that you may have on the project. The applicant will then do a presentation and also get grilled by the Plan Commission on any questions you guys may have as well. Then you'll receive public comments from members of the public. They get 3 minutes each. So Vice Chair Dennis Miller will have a timer by him. He'll set the timer. It'll run for 3 minutes. The public will also receive the time on there. This comment is for them to provide testimony to the Plan Commission. It's not necessarily back and forth. You're not engaging with them. You're just receiving information so that you have the information that they're providing to you to help with your decision-making process. The applicant will then come back and be able to rebut any points that were brought up. And then the Plan Commission will then kind of finish with any questions or any questions for staff and our responses. You will then close the public hearing for your final deliberation and then an action on it. And so the compliance with this process is very important. One is for the due process rights of the applicant as well as member of the public. So if we kind of deviate from this, we're engaging or we're not giving the applicant, let's say, a time for a rebuttal, then their process and their due rights through a fair process is violated, and so they can actually challenge the city for violating that and overturn the decision, whatever case, whichever direction it may be, because of that, or may require a do-over of that. And so certainly it's important to just be follow the procedure. That way everyone gets their voices heard and the applicant also receives a fair process. Now, kind of talked about a few different terms. One was findings, and the next one is conditions of approval. The findings are really kind of the facts of why a decision was made. They're always required for the quasi-judicial decisions, and really think of it as the because of a project. So the project meets the general plan because of this. The standards, address these certain issues related to traffic because of this. The general plan roadway along here is a major arterial, and so it allows for this flow, and so it covers there. And one of the things that is important is staff will always provide these draft findings for your review. So you don't necessarily have to start with a blank canvas and magically fill it up. We will provide that for you guys. If you see something that needs a little bit more elaboration, you are welcome to add that either to bolster the record, or if, let's say, you disagree with the findings, then you will provide that justification that will refute what maybe we had provided as well. And again, always kind of focusing on the bid picture as well and providing that supporting evidence. And then as part of the project, for those that have done development before or kind of worked on that side, every project receives conditions of approval. So as they go through after the approval process, they have ongoing conditions. So as they're in operation, they're always required to maintain compliance with our codes, but they're also required to do certain key things prior to the issuance of a grading permit, prior to a building permit, and prior to certificate of occupancy. And so they may have to, submit grading plans. They may have to, get the water infrastructure done at a certain time so that they can connect to it. And there's all these little things that are usually routine, but sometimes bespoke to the needs of a specific project. And so they serve under the constitutional power of protecting the health, safety, and welfare for the city. And as the commission, you can review those conditions. If you see something that maybe a certain use needs a little bit more attention to an issue, as an example, the meeting minutes that Commissioner McHouston identified, where it was the landscaping on the front that was for a former project, that was to address a visual concern that a former commissioner had identified on a project to enhance it, and so that was added in as a condition to address that specific issue. So then that way, once they went into the design phase of that project, that was addressed and caught through that review process. Now, the key considerations for those conditional approval is it has to serve a legitimate public purpose, can't deny the viable use of a piece of property, and then there's two taking clauses under the United States Constitution that also applies, and they're referred to as the Nolan and Dolan cases. One is it has to have a rational connection or nexus to the project request. So it has to really tie into what is the project doing and why does this condition relate to it. And the last one is the Dolan case where the condition itself is proportional to the request. So you can't over-condition a project where if their impact is this, and you say, but we're going to condition you to do all these improvements even though this project only creates this, then there's a takings clause as well. And so that's something to keep in mind as you weigh in the conditions, is making sure that they're fair and appropriate to what the project impacts are actually doing as well. Now, I'm going to identify some key tips for the commissioners as we venture out in this fun 2-year stint with this current commission. Is, one is really honoring relationships between each other, that you guys are all working together, and we're all working together as a team with city staff as well. We want to conduct effective meetings so that, one, we're representing a good face for the community and serving the community as best as we can, holding each other and everyone accountable, developing that sense of team, and then also learning and developing together. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of changes in the planning field, both in terms of just good practices of good development, how the market conditions have changed in terms of development. But then lastly, there's a lot of changes in state law that impact what we can and can't do. And we gotta kind of roll with it. And so it's important to stay up to date on it. We try to help make sure that you guys are aware of those changes. So then that way you guys aren't necessarily making decisions that are contrary to state law and could create a problem going forward. So the relationships kind of covers kind of 3 different components. With each other, you guys may not always agree on everything, so you guys have to be able to disagree without being disagreeable. Not everyone's gonna have the same perspective on stuff. We all come from different backgrounds, different perspectives on uses, but we can still find, debates about policy, but not on the personalities of it. It's nothing personal, but there's also common ground that can be found. Certainly recognize with staff, we are here to help you guys. We are trying to help bridge the gap, serve, both the residents, serve the development community that's bringing projects. We're trying to be stewards of their process and being fair with it. And also working with you guys, we want to make sure that you guys are prepared to make a good decision and you guys have the facts you guys need to make such a decision. And then along with working with the community is, one, you want to be respectful. They're going to provide testimony. They are going to be passionate about those projects. And so we want you guys to be consistent, fair, and transparent. And also one thing that is very important is beware of any kind of discussion of those people, anything that could lend itself to a discrimination type of thing as you're reviewing projects. As inadvertent as it may be, is something that is also very important as part of that discussion. Now, there's a few things that's important for effective meetings. Certainly being respectful, being mindful of your body language. If you kind of disengage or you're kind of slouching or if you're kind of talking to someone else, that is seen from members of the audience, and so that does reflect on how the audience perceives the commission. Now, remember that the issues are not personalized. We're trying to be thoughtful with what we're doing. Come prepared and have an open mind. Be civil, act with decorum. And the last part kind of here is act transparent, the Brown Act. We want to make sure that the decisions that are happening for the community are happening in the public forum for everyone to see, that the decisions aren't just happening magically, that it's very clear cut why the decisions are happening and what the rationale is for those. And one of the two elements that's important to note, you guys are the face of the land use process. So anyone that's doing investments in the community, including developers that may have large-scale, multi-million-dollar projects, but even a resident that's doing a minor variance for a small addition to their house and only spending a couple $1,000s, they are coming to you guys to do an investment, and they want to make sure that they're at least getting a fair process. They want to do something. You guys are the face of that process. And then you guys are appointed by the city council to support their policy and advise them on your guys' land use lens as appropriate. And so you guys really do set the tone on the council's direction, and you guys are trying to be the transparent arm of the land use decision. So since you guys are normally the final acting body on most of these land use projects, what gets built in the city, being the transparent face is very important for maintaining that public trust for the community. Now, meetings are sometimes really easy, really fun, pretty simple. Sometimes they can be very difficult. Luckily, you guys don't have a very contentious meeting, but 2 years ago, both Stacy Chester and Tony Hitz started off right in a very contentious multi-hour meeting right from the start, so they got trial by fire. There's a lot of reasons why meetings are contentious. One is people that attend these normally don't attend a lot of meetings. It's first time public speaking, so people are sometimes nervous doing that, and so that's sometimes a concern. They are sometimes very involved and passionate about their issue, so they are really committed to whatever the outcome is, and so they are engaged with it. And they also, just really not unsure of how the process works, and so they're just trying to get, understood. They want feedback in it. They want to understand what's going on, what they can and can't provide input on, and trying to make sure that they're being fair. As part of our efforts, when we do have public hearing projects, we try to get our notifications out as early as the project's deemed complete. So once it starts its review, we're already getting notices out. So rather than right before a meeting, like most cities, 10 days before a meeting, they send out a notice saying, hey, we're going to have a meeting on this project. Let us know what you think. And everyone shows up. We start at the front end of the project going, hey, here's a project coming through. Let us know early on what your thoughts are. So if there's issues that we can address early in the project design, we want to do that then rather than just springing it upon them right before the meeting. So then they're showing up going, what is this project and what are you guys doing in my neighborhood and why is this just all of a sudden showing up? And so we do try to integrate that comments where feasible, and then we have a map on our city's website of all current projects. So as soon as a project comes in and is deemed complete and in the review, it's also on the city's map of current projects. And so it's easy to see what's in the entitlement phase, what has been approved, what is under construction. So it's trying to make it as transparent. We include the site plan so they can, without even coming to City Hall, can already look at what's happening. The project notice includes a QR code to that map so they can figure it out where the project is and start that process before they come in. And then that way they're prepared to have their questions ready to go before they come and visit us. And then that way we can start off a productive conversation at the start. And then definitely one thing to keep on our public hearing attendees, most people that are, have a perspective of, yeah, that sounds great, or yeah, I really don't care about the project, are not the ones that are going to show up to a meeting. Usually it is slanted toward those that are generally opposed to a project. And so you do have to recognize that the attendance is not necessarily going to be the full reflection of the audience, but the perspectives that are brought through those public comments are worth listening to. And so consider some of those considerations that they bring up and find solutions within that, but also recognize the findings. There are certain projects where the discretion is very limited. And so those are decisions that the Planning Commission also has to work on, and recognize that not everyone's going to be happy with your decisions. Everyone does have opinions. Ultimately, your role is to follow the findings, follow the policies and procedures, find common ground where you can, but it is important to recognize that component. And then one last thing that I think is also important when it comes to certain projects is the people that do show up at meetings concerning a project, after the project is approved, built, those people don't necessarily show up afterwards and reflect on how they view the project afterwards. And so there is oftentimes that lack of follow through on what they thought was the worst case scenario and what actually happens. And so there's been a number of residential projects where the public comments of what they thought was going to be what it is, what the neighborhood actually experiences, the projects end up becoming part of that neighborhood, becoming part of just that community. Even other commercial sites where residents were concerned about the redevelopment of a commercial site. They were worried that it was going to exacerbate issues that they already had with the existing site, when in fact the redevelopment actually improved the conditions they had before. And so those commenters don't necessarily come back to say what has actually been improved, and that's okay, but just something to keep in mind. I have a number of projects that I could list off where that is indeed the case, and is just something as well. People are excited to visit, to reflect on concerns, but not necessarily on the positives. And so that's just another perspective to keep in mind in the long term, and weighing as part of the feedback you get and seeing where positives can be found. Now, the lens of your decision kind of falls within things you should be considering, things you necessarily shouldn't be. Definitely you should be making efforts within the existing policy and or precedent, your direction from the city council, using good development and planning principles, and using your personal perspective as well as the public comments to enhance a project for the point. So you're trying to use all the feedback to make sure that the project is the best version of what it should be. What shouldn't be used is just if you dislike a type of use, hey, I don't like ice cream shops, so I'm not going to approve an ice cream shop, isn't necessarily a reason for your decision. Using policies that are outside of the planning purview, let's say, hey, I'm going to base my decision purely on a land view issue without necessarily having that's not necessarily a planning commission issue. City council may consider that, but it's not a planning commission lens. Shouldn't be part of that. And then certainly using just majority rule isn't part of that plan commission lens. It ultimately comes down to what does the policy say, what does the facts say, and using that as the gauge, and then trying to find at least where the middle ground can be found. And the final tips kind of along this, there's no bid book on planning. There's also no right answer. Planning is complicated. People are unique. Everyone has different opinions. Issues are nuanced. The type of development you get is always going to be different. Perspectives of what people view as, high density, low density, too much commercial, not enough commercial. Everyone has a different view of what they want to see. And the needs of the community also changes over time. What the city was looking for in 1989 when we incorporated is different than what it is now. Also when we incorporated, one of the votes that the city took was, do we want to be the town of Yucaipa Valley or the city of Yucaipa? And ultimately the city voted for the city of Yucaipa. And so there's different pieces of history. The market changes a lot. And so we also have to recognize that the lens of the world changes. And so it's not a static, things aren't just imprinted once and then we just have to stay with it. Things do change. Everyone has a right to petition. So some people bring terrible projects and we can't stop them. So, well, if we see stuff that's a problem, we will let you know. But everyone can submit a project. These aren't projects we just magically dream up. So remember that the microphones are always on. Your presence on the dais is recorded. So make sure that that is understood. And everything is in the public record. Other things is that some projects can be environmentally fine, but still be a bad idea. Sometimes you do have to make a decision without all the answers. Sometimes you may get stuck with analysis by paralysis, but ultimately you do have to render a decision. You do set the stage for the business-friendly reputation while also still encouraging quality development. So just because you try to be business-friendly doesn't mean that you can't have high expectations either. And so that is an important distinction to make. Lastly, we are here to help. We want to make sure that you guys are all prepared because we want these meetings to run smoothly. And the last thing is, most people don't recognize you guys are volunteers. You guys stay here late. While I do get paid to work at the city of Yucaipa, I don't get overtime to be here late at night. I do have 2 young kids. it's a very selfless act. Sometimes we guys are here past midnight. We've been here where the light shut off, and we're scrambling to find the switch to get it back on. You guys are volunteers to serve and shape the future of the community. It may not always be recognized, but we do recognize it. And so we appreciate your guys' time for that. And next sessions, I'm going to get into kind of planning 101. What are the documents we use? So I talked about the general plan, zoning code. Well, what are those? I'll cover that just very briefly. I'll get into key housing laws since there's a ton of them. They're very complicated. They restrict a lot of decisions you guys can do, and so it's very important to know. And the last one is the California Environmental Quality Act. You guys have to assess all projects for the environmental impacts. CEQA is to disclose impacts, so you can still approve projects with big impacts, but the documents themselves can be over 1,000 pages long. So I'm going to try and help you guys understand what you're looking for, what is important to really digest, because when you get a Plan Commission packet and you see it in the 1,500 pages, it can be quite daunting. And so I'll make sure that you guys are prepared to know how to get to it when those documents first get published, and then that way you guys have a running start ahead of time, so you're not spending a whole weekend reading a whole bunch of very dry environmental technical documents, because it's boring. So that's it for my introduction on Plan Commission 101.
Awesome, thank you, Ben. With that, we're going to open the public hearing.
Excuse me, can I ask a question, please? Sure. Ben, one of your items up there said projects may be environmentally benign, but in the end, a bad idea. So that's kind of counterintuitive to what we were told. So we do have an obligation to look at a project and decide whether it's a good fit or not a good fit for the city, and not just kind of blindly follow the direction of city council, which in that case, if it was a environmentally benign project, am I missing something in that?
No, I think it's just recognizing that, some projects, there's a recognition that some things that may be like low key in the project. So let's say an example, certain land use where it's very low impact of a type of commercial use, for example, where it really is not a very heavy traffic use, may still not be a great land use decision. It may not generate, maybe a lot of value to the city. It may provide not a lot of value to the residents in terms of uses that would benefit those residents directly, or provide a stronger tax base. And so it may be a small impact where, it's not going to really create any problems from, the environment, won't create traffic, but isn't necessarily a good land use decision. And so that's kind of where it comes down to. And so that's certainly something that, as part of our development code update, we're hoping to kind of address a little bit more, since some of the fiscal impacts are big concern with the fiscal sustainability of the city into the future, as we want to make sure that that lens is a little bit more deliberate, so that way, just because it's a smaller scale of a project may not necessarily be the best version of that type of land use.
So basically, we do have purview over projects if we don't think they're a good fit. So whether it's environmentally or, it's still a responsibility, and I just think it's important that everybody understands that we do have a job other than just rubber stamping. Yeah, there's some discretion, and it comes back to the general plan as well. So as an example, where I talked about kind of the fiscal stuff, there is a fiscal impact and economic development chapter to the general plan. And so in that, there are policies that you can go to that's tangible, where you go, hey, this project, it's not really a heavy intensive use, but it meets none of these findings. And so I'm going to use this as justification to say, hey, sure,
we need to do a little bit more benefit to the community, because otherwise we're missing this whole piece of the pie.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question and a statement. When we go through the process of the public hearing, and in between item D, the applicant's representative's presentation and before public comment, I found in the past, when serving on the commission, it was best that we asked as many questions as possible to the applicant at that point in time before the public came up to ask questions. And that many times we could take care of their questions or maybe bring up other questions that they may have. So the more questions we ask and the earlier we ask it, it's better for the public to understand or get some thoughts and may raise other questions that they may have. I just found that worked out better. It seemed to avoid having issues where the public wanted to jump in after we closed the public comment. So I urge all the commissioners to ask those questions that you may have with the applicant before the public comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great comment.
And I would just say too that, you know, for the first few meetings, you'll probably see us doing some of this back and forth because three of us have some experience, and if we're asked questions, but, you know, please be assured we're not discussing the projects, we're just helping with procedural type things, and that'll become less and less as everybody gets brought up to speed, so.
Yep. And as always, we are happy to help, and we are a resource, so yeah, we want you guys to be comfortable out there and do the best job you guys can. So.
And if you have any questions, you know, to my fellow commissioners that haven't had the experience, just ask Ben, you know, ask staff, and they'll, don't be afraid to ask. It takes a little while. This can be really overwhelming at first. And so please ask staff and use that resource.
Yeah, I geek out over this stuff, so I didn't spend a lot of time on it. All right.
Do any of the other commissioners have anything to add or say questions to ask? No? Okay, with that, we're going to move on to the public hearing. So let's order the order of business for the public, and we're going to start with the disclosure of ex parte communication. So with that, that is just, has anybody spoken to the developer, applicant, or any other party? That's kind of what ex parte. Has anybody had any?
No.
No? Okay. So with that, let's move on to the staff presentation.
All right, Maddie will present this item for you guys.
Good evening, Honorable Chair and newly elected planning commissioners. Tonight I'll be presenting this item number 5. The applicant Saba Development LLC has submitted case number PLN PHE 24-0007. This is a public hearing entitlement which considers a planning use permit, also known as a PUP, to authorize minor site plan and building footprint modifications for a phased commercial development project that was previously approved as case number 22-120 back in 2023. The revised design proposes to incorporate an added 1,465 square feet to the convenience store building to accommodate their future tenant needs. As well, there is a reduction in the side yard setback for the car wash building on the site, with an increase in height proposed to a sound wall along the western property line of the subject property. So the subject site encompasses 3 parcels that again total 3.17 acres. A lot merger has been concurrently submitted to the city for review to consolidate development within a singular commercial site. As a condition of approval, this process will be finalized prior to commencement of construction at the property. The subject site is zoned CS, or service commercial, and there are legal non-conforming single-family residential structures on the property that are proposed to be demolished in order to accommodate the future development. Legal non-conforming, if you're not familiar with that term, means that these structures do not conform to current regulations for our zoning code, as they were constructed prior to city incorporation and the adoption of our current general plan. Another term that you may have heard familiar to this is a grandfathered in use. The freeway corridor specific plan area, which is currently in the process of being updated, is to the south of the site, and our freeway gateway district is to the west. The gateway area prioritizes attractive and aesthetic development within one of our main entrance points to the city. Access to the proposed development will be provided by 2 driveways along Oak Glen Road. So as identified in the current project description, there is some prior history that we'll go over at the subject site. So at a special planning commission meeting in June of 2023, the planning commission reviewed and approved that previous project. The project scope included 5 commercial building pads, a car wash, a gas station, convenience store, drive-through restaurant, and then a retail and office building. And all of these uses are permissible through the application of a CUP within our development code. And then to the right is a rendering of the retail and office building. So through the applicant's submission of building and safety construction documents to the city for review, our planning division identified that the site plan had minor but substantive changes, which pursuant to our development code would require an updated entitlement submittal to be reviewed and approved by our planning commission, which is now you guys. While components of the prior CUP will ultimately remain in effect, the applicant has thus submitted a planning use permit to consider the slightly revised project design, and then considering the following: 1,400 square foot addition to the convenience store, the reduction in setback for the car wash, and then the increase in height to the sound wall, which they did provide a supplemental noise study showing that 11 foot is the recommended mitigation for that wall. The phasing of the original approval remains the same. So phase 1, they'll have the gas station developed, the convenience store, the drive-through car wash, as well as 20 EV Tesla charging spaces, which are a component of this project scope. And then phase 2 will include the drive-through restaurant as well as the retail and office building, which the intended capacity is for 4 tenants. The project remains consistent with our development code, and some key elements include 25% of the site to be landscaped and then sufficient parking. So our development code requires each use associated with the project to provide 1 parking space per 250 square feet of building area. This is 63 spaces respectively, and the site provides 67, and that includes some of those which will be EV charging spaces, which certainly with the market and trends towards more electric vehicles should help provide that service to the community. So as previously mentioned, again, the revised design proposes to incorporate just an added 1,465 square feet to the convenience store building, but this is to the back of the site, so it really doesn't have any impact on the previously approved building elevations. It will maintain this craftsman-inspired design with farmhouse influence seen through faux barn door accents and windows with thick black trim and crosshatch detailing. Because the subject site is along the major arterial street of Oak Glen Road, the applicant provided particular emphasis for the building frontage in line with our general plan policies for that main corridor of the city. The landscaping plan retains the same conceptual layout as the original entitlement, again with emphasis at the front of the site, proposing 20-foot gently sloping buffers along Oak Glen Road, which is also considered a scenic corridor of our city. A standard condition of approval for any development project in the city is that formal landscaping plans are to be submitted and reviewed by our contract landscaping architect. So the applicant will formally update these plans and submit them through our new digital online portal as they move forward with the further preparation of construction documents. Here's some site photos. And then project notices were sent to contiguous property owners, and no responses were received for this revised update, the PUP process. There was some responses that had come through on the initial proposal regarding the landscape, and all of those considerations remain the same as the original CUP, and as discussed on the previous slide. Because this project qualifies as infill development, it is exempt from CEQA under a Class 32 exemption. And then based on a net square footage of 24,179 square feet, the applicant will be responsible for paying into our development impact fee program. As a note, development impact fees are ultimately determined based on the adopted fee schedule in effect at the time of permit issuance, so this is subject to change depending on when construction commences. So with that being said, staff recommends the project is approved with recommendations A through E presented on the screen. We're available for questions, and the applicant is also present in the audience with their team.
Thank you so much. Before we move on to the applicant, do any of our commissioners have any questions to ask staff? Tony?
I do. Katrina, on the, when this came through originally, one of the agreements that was reached with the developer was for a sound wall across the rear of the property. Can you show me where, it doesn't look like it extends past the drive-through restaurant, and that more of it's on the west side. I think my concern is the west side will be commercial in the future. It's not going to remain residential. It may be residential right now, and it may actually be a vacant home at this point. I'm not sure if that one is. But, so the westerly side, I don't think we were as concerned about, you know, to a return point that would probably be equal to the angle of the end of the car wash, and, you know, to block that sound that would go to the existing residents, and then extend down past the fast food restaurant, and in particular the drive-through and the menu board. That's what we had asked for, and that's what they agreed to, and that was part of the original condition of approval, I believe.
Yeah, so that's reflected in the conditions of approval with the notation that it was added by the Planning Commission. That is definitely something that we'll ensure is reflected on the construction documents that come through the city for review.
Because on this revised plan, it only shows it past the back of the AM, PM.
That may have been, the applicant had their noise study in particular updated because there's two things happening. The noise study was suggesting as a mitigation measure for the properties on the west to have that as a sound wall. And then the Planning Commission's recommendation was for it along the northern property line.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely make sure to be on the lookout for that. The noise study, though, wouldn't necessarily have updated and been reflected
No,
of
the
that.
noise study, I think, was specific to the car wash, right? And not,
And that use. So there's definitely sometimes a balance then between the different designers and the civil engineer working on like the grading plan that may be more likely to show things like the walls and the retaining walls. So when that does come through, our department in planning will ensure that that's reflected.
because that was the surrounding landowners, that was their concern, is the noise. And, you know, the car wash is one issue, but the fast food, you know, 500 times a day, hi, welcome to my Del Taco, gets old listening to. And so that was a compromise that they'd agreed to and we're happy with. And I just want to make sure we get them covered. And I really think some of that could be offset. I know there's some sound, but the car wash itself doesn't generate really any sound off that west side, even though it's moved closer to the property line, because the structure of the car wash itself prevents the sound from going to the west. It's that outlet end of the car wash where the dryers are. And I know they have, you know, low sound dryers, but there's still some noise. But really that wall, I think you could take that section that's to the west, more on that westerly side, parallel to the structure, and, you know, offset to the other side or to the rear past the drive-through. So it's not any additional wall for them, but.
So are you suggesting revising the previously adopted condition site?
No, I
then,
think
or-
it was adopted with a wall that extended past the fast food. That was
along the northern property line.
yeah,
is
that
what
was
I'm
very
saying.
specific at the time, and that's what, again, with the objections of residents, that was something that they were satisfied with. It was that we extended past the drive-through, so.
We'll review the Plan Commission meeting and make sure that whatever
Yeah.
that language was.
Well, I made
carried
the
through.
motion to approve with that, so I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure.
We'll make sure that that is reflected on their wall plans. For
Okay.
There's also deliberate hours of operations of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for
Yeah, and the car wash isn't, but it's real likely that the fast food could be 24 hours. And so you have that drive-through, since the drive-through entry is on the north end of the fast food, the way it's proposed now, that's just an annoyance for the property owners that was addressed at that meeting. So I'm just hoping we can get that taken care of, because that was definitely the intent of my motion when I made it to approve.
Okay, any other commissioners have any questions for staff? All right, with that, do we have the applicant representative here that would like to give a presentation?
I'm Chris Saba, met a couple of you before. I'm the applicant, part of Saba Development Group. And yeah, I mean, Maddie did a pretty good job on explaining the whole project. She's been great with us throughout the last couple of years. For your concern, we are reflecting the conditions of approval to the T. We have to. So like Maddie said, it might be just on a different plan, like the more specific grading plan that has all the retaining walls and stuff. But whatever was decided on that meeting is being reflected on that plan. So
Yeah, I don't want you to build more wall. I just want it moved
we
around
want the
where it's
right
most
amount of
effective.
wall, right? We want to. I remember the gentleman. I remember the conversation well. So we will make sure that it is to what it needs to be with Ben and Maddie and everything.
Thank
so.
you, appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Your neighbors will be happy.
Yeah, they will be. I think they were happier after that meeting as well. And
They were. That was the concession they were looking for. So,
yeah, and I understand it. So
yeah. Well, thank you.
of course, we're looking forward to this project big time. We have a big Tesla site coming with 2 canopies for Tesla, so it's gonna be really nice, really bright. We're trying to add additional Teslas to the site. We're talking now. So it's going to be a big Tesla site. Also for the fueling portion, we're having biodiesel, which is a cleaner diesel, and we're having E85, an ethanol product, which is a much cleaner product. So we're trying to make it kind of an energy center more than just a gas station. So we'll have all different type of fuels, also charging. And with phase 2 coming, we'll be exciting to see what tenants we can get and what brands we can get. So what questions do you guys have for me, and I can help?
Awesome, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant? No? Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
With that, we're going to move to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We have one.
Dr. Hanson Wong?
I just need some clarification on the parking. There's certain parking requirements, and the amount of parking is shy, except for the additional of the Tesla parking, which usually is restricted. And I was just wondering whether that covers the deficit, or whether it's just something that we don't need to comply completely with. I'm happy to see the charging for electrical vehicles, although Tesla does restrict it because a lot of people can't afford a Tesla, so they buy other kinds of electrical vehicles. Anyway, just wondering about the parking situation.
Okay, with that, we will close the public hearing and open it for commissioner discussion. So let's start on the end. Do you have any questions, or would you like to have a discussion?
No, I'm good, no comment, or no questions.
All right, moving on. Do you have any comments or questions about the project?
Just to make sure I understand that this previous plan was approved. The only addition or change, revision, is adding the 1,465 square feet to the commercial area?
Yes, that is correct. And I did want to identify as well, as we kind of skipped the applicant rebuttal, but that's okay. The site does provide the required parking for the site based on the public comment received. So the site does accommodate required parking as it stands without double kind of dipping into the different uses. If we want, we can kind of reopen the public hearing so the applicant
Okay, let's reopen the public hearing, and we'll have the applicant come back up to discuss the parking situation that was addressed in the public comment.
So we did get Tesla to do general parking as well as charging. So it's 30-minute general parking for all the spots as well as charging. So you don't have to charge a vehicle to park there. One of the stipulations we did with Tesla was that it needs to be full general for anybody on the site. So So you don't have to charge a vehicle to park there. And then also we added the 1,400 square feet because we're adding a couple of brands inside the C-store. There'll be Cinnabon and Auntie-Anne's going in as well. So for the Tesla parking, there'll be more offerings and more things and more brands on the site for college kids or for the freeway or for anybody charging a Tesla. So that's all. Now you can close the hearing.
Okay, we're back to closed. Let's move on. Do you have any comments?
Yeah. Commissioner Hicks brought up about the sound wall on the north side by the fast food restaurant. And I've heard talk about a retaining wall. A retaining wall, of course, is different than a sound wall. So somewhere in the past approval, there was what Commissioner Hicks was stating, there was a approval or a proposal to put a sound wall in that location, and at what height? It's a question.
If I may, the sound wall was for the western property line, and that came as a recommended mitigation measure from a noise analysis that was prepared, which took into consideration all of the different uses on the property. And if I'm remembering correctly, it's because there's residential next to that car wash area that recommended that specific property line with the sound wall. And then there is a condition of approval number 24 that references working with staff to determine appropriate screening barrier along the northern property line, and that's to Commissioner Hicks' point about the previous item and some concerns with the drive-through land use in particular, which is more along that northern property line. So we'll look for that, and that wouldn't necessarily be a sound wall per se per the noise study, but would be a screening and barrier to hopefully mitigate some of that.
Screening is somewhat like vegetation, some type of fencing.
Wall and ground combination is what is recommended on the condition, but yeah, as Ben said too, we can listen back to the meeting minutes or if there's specific clarity that you guys want to revise.
It was, I think the point was definitely for kind of the sound box and I think minimizing the nuisance related to that type of sound. The sound wall is more specifically for the car wash, and in particular because its proximity to the property line, we also have performance standards for the noise level at property line. So even though the neighboring property will also likely become a commercial site at some point, the fact, because it's close to the property line, it still has to meet a certain performance standard. So that sound wall is required in part because of that requirement, and then the other component is included as a condition. Looking at their landscape plans, they do identify kind of the perimeter screening wall anyways, and so it looks like it's reflected. We'll just have to double check that their civil engineering drawings, they include the wall plans in the process.
Yeah, I think we had left it up to staff to, because there was some discussion about building a berm and then landscaping on top of it, and or extend the sound wall. But the sound wall did not extend past the Arco on the previous plan, I don't believe.
And I think
there was nothing to the north, I don't believe, on
and if I remember correctly, the purpose of that flexibility was because there is the slight slope down, as we didn't want to create like a no man's land of where there's a wall and then some landscape section that no one can maintain.
And that was my concern, that with the downslope, just the landscape alone wouldn't be enough to muffle that sound.
Yep.
And so I know that's where we were. They had agreed to it, so I think we're all in agreement on that.
Yep, and those conditions are still required.
Yeah. But
All right, are you done?
Comment?
Okay.
The neighbors, were they made aware of that table 4 exceedance on the entrance and exit? Were they aware that the noise standard exceeded at the peak hour, from 10 to 12 numbers higher? Because I think you said there was a letter to the neighbors, they had no issues on noise with the car wash, is that right?
Which table are you specifically referring
no,
to?
I don't think that they had no issue with it. It was just, we came up with a mitigation for it that was acceptable.
Which is that sound?
Was a sound wall and additional screening.
Okay.
But as far as anything that was contained in the original submittal and staff recommendation, that would have been included in it, that those items, so they had access to that material.
Oh.
Yeah.
If I may, I think you're referring to Table 4, Summary of Noise Operation Impacts without noise control, where it refers to two of the site assessments, incidents. This is where the sound wall, if you follow the next table, Table 5, those two areas with the noise control, which is the wall, then those are in compliance. So that's where the mitigation measures of that design feature added in is what solves that issue. And so it's no longer an issue by implementing this one design
Awesome.
feature. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments to make? Tony?
I would just like to say that I appreciate the additional detail you've done on the building. It's going to be a really nice looking project, and I'm happy to see a gas station that's finally coming in with charging stations that's taking into account some services for customers that are charging cars, because for the most part, you've got a convenience store, you got people that are sitting there for 30 minutes or 45 minutes to charge their car, and there's really nothing for them to do. So it's a great way to take advantage of that customer base that you have there. And so I'm fix the sound wall. I'm all in support of your project.
And the only thing that I want to say that this is in the commercial zone, and having a Tesla charging station specifically will be beneficial to the constituents of Yucaipa, because right now anybody that does have a Tesla has to go to Calamasa. I don't know if anyone knows that, so it would serve to be a benefit being in the commercial zone, and it would bring more tourism to our city. So that's all I have to say. So with that, should we move to a vote?
Yeah.
Yes? All right, let's
I'll make a motion then.
All right, does anybody have a second?
I'll second that.
Well, I'll make the motion that we approve agenda item number 5, Sabat Development LLC, with the note that the sound wall or the sound barrier for the fast food restaurant, that the existing wall will be extended to take into account that additional noise. Okay?
Second?
And I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passed.
All right, you guys' first public hearing. Good job, you guys.
All right, do we have any announcements?
I do. So, given that you guys got appointments in January, so this is February now, kind of a little bit late. The Planning Commission Academy is a great avenue to meet fellow commissioners and get kind of a good introduction into the Planning Commission role. I have the ability to take 2 Planning Commissioners to Santa Rosa this year. The Planning Commission Academy is March 5th through 7th, and so we will be driving up March 4th and coming back on March 8th, it appears. And so I wanted to see if anyone has interest in doing it. I do have spots for 2 Planning Commissioners to go up to beautiful Santa Rosa, and so if anyone is interested, let me know. And you can join me and Katrina up to beautiful Santa Rosa, California, and learn all about what other planning commissioners are doing. It's a great resource to kind of immerse yourselves into the planning commission realm and meet fellow commissioners and get kind of a good dive, similar to my presentation that I provided today, but in a variety of other topics as well. And it's a very helpful program. Other commissioners have attended, and they always found it very valuable. So let me know as soon as possible, and anyone that wants to go, just let me know.
I would love to go, but I'll defer to the newer members. And if there's a spot open after everyone else, I'd like to go. But I definitely like.
No, I'm saying for the other than the 2. There's not the reservations for the conference is filled.
All right, does anybody else have a desire or would like to say anything to go to this conference?
Well, I'm
Tony, is it-
retired, so I'll go if nobody else wants to.
We'll be driving up March 4th and coming back March 8th. Okay.
Just have to be aware if you've ever ridden with Ben.
Great driver.
I retract that.
All right, with that,
Can I, if I could, I just want to say, thank you to all you gentlemen and ladies for doing this. It can be a little challenging at times. It takes a little while to get up to speed, but I appreciate you all volunteering for this and your time and commitment to it. And I also want to say that, I've been on most of 4 years, and in that time, prior to this, now this makes 15 different members that I've served with, and in 4 years, so it's been a big turnover every year. And we've agreed and disagreed many times, but I count everyone that I've served with so far as a friend, and I'm sure we'll be the same. And I want to thank all the members from the last 2 years Planning Commission for all their time. It was a very difficult 2-year stint on the Planning Commission. My first 2 years were very easy compared to what the last 2 years were. And especially I want to thank J.R. Allgauer, who had been on commission for 14 years, or 14 plus, I think. And he had a lot of health problems in the last few years. And despite that and a lot of pain, he showed up to, I believe, all but one meeting. And I really appreciate his commitment to it. So I just want to say thank you to JR.
Yeah, he was a trooper.
he was a trooper for sure. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Okay, it is 7:52 and meeting is adjourned.